Warning, viewer discretion is advised. In this episode, we're going to turn up the heat. We're going to count down the top 5 Carnal songs of all time. And these are tracks that push boundaries, they raised eyebrows, they made people blush, and they sent the morality police into a frenzy. Hey, it's sex, drugs, and rock and roll for a reason. These songs weren't just hits. They were bold, they were seductive, and unapologetically raw. A few of them were straight up banned, like the biggest hit ever from the Golden Gods of Rock, whose lead singer mimicked the sounds of Carnality so vividly it cost the band the #1 hit. And then there was the music video by a hard rock band that was so bad, Friday night videos had to put black bars over the screen to cover some naughty parts. And you'll be shocked to find out that the most famous song about getting it on is actually about praying to overcome substance abuse. All 5 of these classic songs that left their mark on rock history. The countdown of the top 5 Carnal songs of the rock era is coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you grew up eating on plates and drinking out of glasses like this, you're going to dig this channel of deep musical nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now. We also have a professorofrock.com. You gotta go sign up there. We got some really cool stuff there, new interviews and live streams. Hey, there's a reason why the calling card is sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And today is going to be a little departure from our usual countdowns. We're going to probe the provocative by covering the first and last word of that quote with the top 5 Carnal songs of the rock era. We got to start with a Van Halen 2 for 1 at our number 5 spot. I got Hot for Teacher from Diamond Dave & Co. from 1984 and Black and Blue by Sammy Hagar and Van Halen from 1988. Of all the songs from 1984, Hot for Teacher, it wasn't a big hit, but it was one of the most memorable tracks of that year. Definitely one of the most memorable music videos. It captured every boy from 7 to 18. I mean, who hasn't had a crush on one of their teachers? But of course, David Lee Roth took this one to the extreme, as he always does, especially in the music video. Now, the first controversy hit in the video when it showed all the band members performing a quick crotch grab during the So Bad part of the chorus. This forced NBC late night show Friday Night Videos to add black box censor bars to the crotch grabs. But then after a few months, they removed them, so there's that. Another controversy came when the co-directors of the music video, Pete Angelus and David Lee Roth, they pulled off a stunt they thought was pretty naughty, but it actually went virtually unnoticed for many years. Angelus said, and I quote, "One thing I remember about that video a lot of people don't know or just didn't see was when Dave turns into the television show host, we had an idea. I thought, there hasn't been a really substantial urine stain on MTV, ever. When you really think about it. So let's pour a lot of water on David Lee Roth's crotch. Let's make it look like he really just pissed himself. And then let's see if anyone sees it when we hand in the video to the record company and to MTV. And nobody noticed, not even the people watching the video. I know this sounds absolutely pathetic to say, but we probably pulled off the first and most substantial urine stain in the history of television, even if nobody got it or saw it." That's Pete Angelus. Now, shifting to Black and Blue from Van Halen's 8th studio album, OU812, the first single released from that record, this marked the continuation of the Sammy Hagar era, showcasing a more bluesy and groove-heavy approach compared to the band's earlier material. The phrase black and blue usually signifies bruises, but when Sammy Hagar wrote the lyrics, he used the phrase as a metaphor for the passion and intensity of a physical or romantic experience. Not really here. It was all about carnal magnetism. And, these lyrics on this song are pretty risque, even for the 80s. But it has one of Eddie Van Halen's most badass riffs and a solo that Eddie wrote as a way to mimic a word that I can't say on here, but it's supposed to mimic the peak of getting it on, if you know what I mean. Black and Blue was a hit. It actually went to number 34 on the Billboard Hot 100. but it actually went all the way to number 1 on the Rock Tracks chart in 1988. Our countdown of the top 5 Carnal songs continues with the baby-making classic, Let's Get It On by Marvin Gaye, coming in at number 4. This is one of those songs that everybody thinks of when they think of these kind of tracks. Ed Townsend, co-writer of Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On, first conceived this song after completing rehab for alcohol addiction. Get this, the original lyrics were a heartfelt plea to a higher power asking for strength to stay sober. While Let's Get It On is famous for its sensual lyrics, Ed insisted that its original meaning, it was a lot deeper. For him, it was a plea to a higher power for the strength to stay sober and, keep moving forward in his struggle, drawing from his own, rehabilitation. That's really fascinating because the song's legacy, it's so vividly tied to its sensuality. It's really impossible to imagine as anything but overtly sexual. But the transformation of Ed Townsend's song began when he presented it to Marvin Gaye. Two friends were working together on material for Marvin's 12th studio album in 1973. Marvin completely altered the lyrics and therefore the meaning of the song. This was after meeting Janice Hunter, the woman who would later become his second wife. Now, the result not only redefined the track, but it also solidified his status as one of the greatest voices in music. This song, it's a classic. Let's get it on, sugar. Okay, so another trippy thing about these lyrics is originally it had the religious overtones to it. However, Marvin's close friend Kenneth Stover reworked some of the lyrics after it was a sex song and gave it a political spin. Marvin actually recorded that version sticking to those lyrics, but Ed Townsend wasn't on board. He argued the song wasn't meant to be about politics, it was now about love and passion and seduction. And Ed managed to sway Marvin, pointing out his obvious infatuation with Janice, who was often in the studio. It was a clear inspiration for the song's, love-making vibe. What a roller coaster for these lyrics. First, it's a song about spirituality and overcoming substance abuse. And then it's, a sex song. It's a get it on song. Then it's a political song. Then it's a get it on song. It's all over the place. Crazy. Now, arranger Renee Hall knew that Let's Get It On needed a unique opening. According to guitarist Don Peake of Mojo Magazine, Hall stopped the session and challenged him to come up with something for the intro. Don, who had just gotten a wah-wah pedal, jumped at the chance. He said, I just went, all right, here we go. And I hit the wah-wah, and that was the intro straight off. And no overdubs. That was it. I've been really trying. Now, this wasn't Don's first rodeo. He had been on a lot of big hits. You've Lost That Love and Feeling by the Righteous Brothers, Ike and Tina's River Deep. So he knew a thing or two about recognizing his song. And Don said he knew without a doubt, not a shadow of a doubt, that Let's Get It On was a special one. Now, most of us know about the bizarre and sad death of Marvin Gaye when he was shot by his father in 1984, to which his father pled no contest to voluntary manslaughter. It would have been poetic if Ed Townsend was able to fight off his addictions for good, which was the song was about originally. But things got worse for Ed. Despite the success of Let's Get It On, Ed's career peaked with the song, and he later fell back into alcohol abuse, sadly. He actually also developed a cocaine habit and ended up living on the streets of L.A. He died of a heart attack in 2003. Let's Get It On was one of more than 200 songs that Ed Townsend either co-wrote or wrote. Let's Get It On would certainly be considered Marvin Gaye's signature song, and it was surely Ed Townsend's most famous. It was a #1 single on the Billboard Hot Soul chart, #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for 2 weeks in 1973. Yeah, I heard it through the grapevine could also be his signature song. Anyway. Moving on up with our top 5 Carnal songs, it's a song from the supergroup Bad Company, Feel Like Making Love by Paul Rodgers and Bad Company. The genesis of Feel Like Making Love began with Paul Rodgers writing a song while he was running around young and free in America in the late 60s. Paul gave me all the details on this song. Here's what he said.
So I wrote the first Baby When I Think About You.
Baby, when I think about you.
And I just put them on, as you say, on the back burner until we got to this album. And Mick said, so we sat down, we said, what have you got? And I said, I've got to write songs for the album. Okay. Well, I've got this one because I've been working on it, But I said, I don't know where else to go with this. Baby, when I think about you, I think about love. And I wrote the verses. And then Mick went, oh, what unit is this? Ba-bum, bam, ba-bam. And I went, I feel like making. So that's how the song came about. Yeah. We didn't really think it would be that big, but it's one of the first songs that a lot of people think about first when they think about Bad Company.
Think about love.
I love the dynamics of how you put that song together, because you come in and it's very slow, methodical, or not slow, but just your vocal is just very almost poignant.
Darling, I don't live without you.
And then you get into that guitar riff, those big chords, man. It's just so classic.
Feel like making.
Oh, it sort of soothes you into a feeling of a false security, really. Wow, it takes your head off. But I think that's definitely two writers coming together there. I mean, Mick's perfect at that sort of thing.
Bad Company's Feel Like Making Love rose to number 20 in the UK, went to number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 here, number 5 in Canada, and number 2 in New Zealand. Oh man, the music of Led Zeppelin, very carnal. But perhaps the track that exuded the most lust for this band was 1969's Whole Lotta Love, coming in at the bridesmaid position here on our top 5 Carnal Countdown. And so it was in the summer of 1968. Jimmy Page was on his houseboat. As the gentle flow of the river provided a serene backdrop, Jimmy Page began experimenting with guitar riffs. It was in this peaceful, isolated setting that he created the iconic riff for A Whole Lotta Love. Years later, John Paul Jones would suggest that the riff might have evolved from live improvisations during performances of Dazed and Confused. But, Jimmy Page wasn't having any of that. He was firm in his belief that the riff had been crafted long before the band hit the stage. He said, I had worked it out beforehand. The Whole Lotta Love riff itself, it's nothing short of legendary with a capital L. Its chugging sound, thick and forceful, creates the illusion of twin guitars. This is all thanks to Page's technique. He played 2 strings in unison, bending one slightly to shift its pitch. As if that wasn't enough, John Paul Jones mirrored the same technique on bass, doubling the riff in a lower octave. The result was a sound so full and so dynamic, it felt as though 2 guitars were playing in perfect harmony. Now, to capture the sound, Jimmy Page used a solid-state amplifier, giving the riff its sharp, distinctive edge, a tone that would go on to define one of rock's greatest carnal anthems.
You need cool air, baby, I'm not fool.
Now, Robert Plant wrote the lusty lyrics for Whole Lotta Love, and the words he wrote met controversy, but not so much for being suggestive. It's more about alleged plagiarism. Here's the backstory. So Robert's lyrics for Whole Lotta Love were actually inspired by a Muddy Waters track from 1962 called You Need Love, written by Willie Dixon. You might recognize the lines, I ain't foolin', you need schoolin', baby, you know you need coolin', woman way down inside, woman, you need love, you gotta have some love.
Way down inside, woman, you need love.
Those lyrics pop up almost word for word in the Zeppelin song. This didn't go unnoticed, and eventually it led to a lawsuit against this band. Fast forward to 1985, and they settled out of court with Willie Dixon, though the exact amount that they paid remains unknown, but it was clearly completely ripped off.
Honey, you need
You know, Robert Plant has since come clean about borrowing Dixon's lyrics and even talked about it in a 1980 interview with Musician magazine. He said, and I quote, "Page's riff was Page's riff. It was there before anything else. I just thought, well, what am I going to sing? That was it, a little nick. Now happily paid for." And he went on to explain, "At the time, there was a lot of talk about what to do. It was decided that it was so far removed in time and influence that, well, you only get caught when you're successful. That's the game." That's what he said.
Way down inside, I wanna give you my love.
All right, so plagiarism aside, Robert Plant's vocal performance on A Whole Lotta Love is as hot-blooded as the lyrics suggest. I mean, the GOAT singer actually mimicked the art of getting it on in such an in-your-face way, it offended plenty of listeners, and some say kept the song from being Led Zeppelin's only #1 hit. It's the one that got the closest. This was due to some radio stations flat out not playing it at all. After another round of Want a Whole Lotta Loves, Robert's voice echoes through the song as he passionately wails, "Way down inside, woman, you need love." With that, the band starts to wind down, knowing they've nailed it, fulfilling rock's ultimate carnal manifesto. Remember that Zeppelin, they didn't release singles in their native UK very often, but in the rest of the world, A Whole Lotta Love was a singles chart sensation. The song went to #2 in Canada. Again, it went to #4 here on the Billboard Hot 100. Barely missed #1, highest charting single for Led Zeppelin. They never had a #1 hit, but it did go to #1 in Australia, Austria, and West Germany. #1 and #2 were really close. They probably could swap places on any given day, but I give this band #1 from the first line of the song alone. The song we felt was the most carnal song of the rock era comes from the masters of the double entendre, "You Shook Me All Night Long" by AC/DC. Again, the first line of the song alone automatically puts it at #1 of the bullet. She was a fast machine. You know the rest.
She was a fast machine, she cocked the motor clean.
You Shook Me All Night Long is pure unapologetic rock and roll libido. I mean, this song drips with sexual energy, using fast cars and electric metaphors to describe an intense all-night encounter with lines like "knocking me out with those American thighs," and this other obvious one,
She told me to come, but I was already there.
The lyrics leave little to the imagination while maintaining a playful tongue-in-cheek attitude, AC/DC's calling card. It was all part of the plan by Brian Johnson to take over the job of replacing the fallen Bon Scott and, lead AC/DC into an unprecedented level of success as the world's biggest-selling rock band with the biggest-selling rock album in history. The pressure was on. It was 1980, and Brian Johnson had just stepped into some big shoes, replacing the late Bon Scott as the new lead singer of AC/DC. The band's leaders, Angus and Malcolm Young, pulled him aside and told him the two guitar slingers had a song called "You Shook Me All Night Long." But it needed lyrics. With a desire to impress his new bandmates and prove that he was the right man to take over for Bon, Brian Johnson didn't waste any time. That very night, he sat down and penned the lyrics to what would become one of AC/DC's most iconic and carnal tracks. Actually, Brian Johnson already had the opening line in his head. She was a fast machine, she kept her motor clean. As a car enthusiast, he was intrigued by the similarities between women and cars, the way that both could be fast, thrilling, and come in all sorts of exciting models, his words. "I had that first line right away," is what Brian Johnson would say. He said, "but the boys already have the title." He went on to explain how the rest of the song came together. He said, "Malcolm and Angus said, 'Hey, we got this song, and when I listened to the chords, it just fit right in.' I can't really take credit for that part." Brian expanded that the rest of the lyrics, they were just filler, such as "knocking me out with those American thighs." That phrase came to him when he was describing the women he observed in the Bahamas, where they recorded Back in Black. I think I've said this before. What makes AC/DC so brilliant is how their guitar riffs are just as powerful and captivating as their clever lyrics and those epic sing-along choruses. And "You Shook Me All Night Long," the magic, it really lies in that irresistible vibe you get from Malcolm's rhythmic humming and Angus's killer guitar riffs. It's what makes the track so electrifying. Of course, we all know that Brian Johnson more than proved himself worthy of being the new frontman for AC/DC. He stopped feeling guilty about the band dipping into their travel budget to flying to the Bahamas to record with them and got to business. Brian's lyrics, they were the perfect match for the song that Malcolm and Angus were eager to record. Now, while You Shook Me All Night Long only hit number 38 in the UK and number 35 on the Billboard Hot 100, it became the lead single for Back in Black, one of the biggest selling albums of all time. Like I said, the biggest selling rock album of all time. And the song just keeps growing in popularity with each generation. I think it's the greatest guitar riff ever. You know, who cares that it only hit number 35 in 1980? It was number 1 on our list of the top 10 songs in 1980. It's number 1 on our list of the most carnal songs of all time. So it's number 1, baby. I got to throw out an honorable mention here, though. I'm sure I could come up with 4 or 5, but I'm just going to mention Cherry Pie, the number 10 hit by Warrant. Lead singer and songwriter Jani Lane sadly died in 2011 from a long, hard bout with alcoholism. But I got a chance to talk to Joey Allen and the rest of Warrant about this song. Here's what they said. You had to know that was a hit song. And I know the story behind it, that Donnie wanted to...
Another song, a song
across... Wanted Love in an Elevator, I think.
What I heard, it was he wanted a cross between Pour Some Sugar on Me and Love in an Elevator.
That record was in the can, done, and Jerry and I were at a celebrity golf tournament drinking beer. Yeah. We got a call
and you got
from
called back.
Yeah, listen to this. Like 4-track, you know. Hey, my Jerry, get back here now. And we went right back.
Written on a pizza box too. That's now in the Hard Rock Cafe, right?
Wow,
I don't know. Yeah, I've heard that.
They've got it down in the Hard Rock Cafe in Florida. I don't know if it's still there, but it was there a few years ago. I remember seeing it. But it became this song that still played all the time. You see it in movies.
Yeah, that song took on a life of its own. It's not our biggest hit, but everybody thinks it is, and in a way, I think it is because it's just this, you know, it stood the test.
Party anthem.
Yeah, that song has been in, I can't even tell you how many movies.
As Jani Lane would say, he hated this song. On occasion, he even said he wished he'd never even written it. But all these years later, this and other songs by Jani remind us time and again of what a talent he was and really how much he's missed. Rest in peace, Jani. Now, back in the day, especially in the 50s, many parents and religious leaders thought rock and roll lyrics were too suggestive and sexual, even though today they might seem pretty tame by, songs coming out every week. There was a real fear that rock music would cause a decline in morals and lead to more juvenile delinquency. All 5 songs on this countdown sparked their own share of controversy, facing off against the morality police who question their decency and even whether they should exist at all. I mean, the very essence of rock is controversial and provocative, but that's what makes these songs so sexy. So, you know what? Let's get it on in the comments below. Let me know your memories of these songs. What are your top 5 or top 10 Carnal songs? We had to go there. It's sex, drugs, and rock and roll, man. You got... But let's have a great discussion below, and let's celebrate some of these provocative songs. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, it's Records and the Truth.